some of you might have seen this in Pune in December last, the presentation, but the puppetry work mixes, or I would say integrates with some of the design work that, maybe I'm the oldest one from NID, 1971 batch. The puppet work starts as a hobby in my hometown in Pune and then carries on through school, college, and comes to NID, 71. Obviously not puppetry in NID, but Darpana Academy of Performing Arts in the evening. But I always go back when people ask me about what is it that is different in the work of puppetry I do to some of the other contemporary puppeteers in India. I keep falling back on the education or the exposure I got at NID, especially in the first 2 years. I left NID in my last year because of a project that came about, which then got me into my profession as a puppeteer at Space Application Center, ISRO, and the SITE experiment, Satellite Instructional TV experiment that happened in 1976, where America had loaned India a satellite, and there were 7 or 8 states, especially for the interior communal viewing, and from the Earth Station programs which were deemed on health, education, social awareness, and InSight was the project for the Nadiad Beach area, which is just 45 kilometers from Ahmedabad, and they wanted a puppet studio or a workshop or whatever, and things that were sensitive or could not be said through the other series or whatever on TV were being said through puppetry. But if I go back to puppetry, what is this? How do we define puppetry? There's tradition, there's modern, there's contemporary, whatever. But the basic thing is the difference between inanimate and animate. Giving life to an inanimate object becomes a puppet today. And that's also very simplified because there are a lot of things which sort of grow from that. But to give you an example, I have something here. Okay, a shoe. Okay, an object. Because puppetry is storytelling, but talking through objects, sometimes figurative, sometimes something like this, abstract. A shoe. If I have to give character to this shoe without embellishing it, okay, who or what could it be? Quickly. As everybody else has taken time, I'm going to take some time as well now. What could it be, or who could it be? Okay, making it simpler, not the best, but if I have to give gender to this shoe, male or female, how many say male? Okay, how many say female? Now the question is 3 said female and the rest, majority said male. Why?
I think it's preconceived notion about that.
You have to speak louder.
I think it's a preconceived notion in our head that this is a male shoe.
Male, yeah, but divest the shoe from the person who's wearing it, okay, or the object. This is the idea. It is difficult to do that. Yeah.
The color and
the what?
the form.
The form, the color. So this is the baggage that we say in theatre that we carry through life, okay, that this is color means this, or this shape means this, or this, or that. And as adults here, it's very interesting because kids in school, when I do this workshop umpteen number of times, have a different version. And very often, why not female, why not male, what all that, color, form. If I had, there is a red shoe up there, very similar. If I brought that shoe here, you would say something maybe very different. Or if it was a pink shoe or a blue shoe or something, that would be different. And now, obviously, when this is juxtaposed with this, the story forms, okay? Because this is obviously from, as he says, someone who's using it now. If somebody can hold that screen, that picture for me, 2 people are needed. And I'll animate these 2 shoes to tell a very simple story. And that's the essence of puppetry, I would say, because the rest figurative stuff comes here. This thing, this picture, yeah. Can you hold it from 2 sides? Turn, oh, yeah. Up, yeah. No, you on one side, somebody else on one side. It'll be easier. Okay, now this is a simple screen. Hold it a little. Hi. Yeah, that's it. Okay, watch. No script, no music, just movement with two objects. That's it. Okay. This is object animation or giving life to objects or inanimate, animate, whatever you call it. Oops, sorry. And may I ask you what happened in this story? Storyteller.
So
What happened?
it felt like somebody was gazing up the balcony and like a loafer from the street.
Yeah. Is that the common version or is there anything else? More or less, okay? Now, to get over it faster, it is that there's a male shoe, there's a female shoe, whatever happens. But if I'm doing this with kids, who are these two people? Who are they? Who are they? Do they know each other? Are they lovers? Is this Eve teasing? What is it? What is it? What comes to mind? Yeah.
I think this was a lover's day.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It was a lover's day.
It was a lover's thing.
Totally.
What else? Now, what happens here is that when we are doing performances, I would say anything else, design, art, it's always sometimes that we think that we are saying something, but it does not necessarily mean that what we're getting through to the people is the same thing. It's not necessary. The audience attaches their version of the story or their experiences of what they've gone through to what you're doing. So I'm taking 2 steps towards the audience and there are 2 steps taken by the audience. Only then it comes alive. Very interesting anecdote. A German puppeteer said a puppet is like an empty vessel, and for those 15 seconds the puppeteer puts in life and the audience puts in, only then it becomes alive, otherwise there's nothing. The objects are dead without the puppeteer and without the audience. In this case, physical movement, you have animatronics, you have many other things, but at the end of the line, generally there's a human being, whether it's a puppeteer or whoever. Now, when this is being done with schools in a certain age, they would say parent and child or mother and child. Okay, teenagers would say something else, lovers, Eve teasing, whatever. Adults would say husband and wife. You know, so everybody puts in their version of the story, and that's how it comes alive. This is the essence, I would say, of puppet theatre. After which we have about 3 or 4 styles of puppetry. Techniques, I would say. One is glove puppets, which everybody uses. Shadow puppets, which are precursor to animation, film, string puppets, and rod puppets. Basically, these are techniques, and then there is mix and match. People have used different things. Muppets, for instance, hand and mouth puppets, Sesame Street, Bunraku technique, which comes from Japan, where there are 3 puppeteers in full view working the puppet. So the thing that I've been using in my work mostly is playing with scale, with color, with scale, with a lot of fabric, because it's easy to pack and carry, and telling stories, sometimes with text, sometimes without, sometimes just a poem or music. But the essence is the same. The simplest things sometimes work the best. For instance, when we're doing workshops, you have we're talking of hand or glove puppets, okay? So you have this piece of cloth, just a piece of cloth, fingers, rubber bands, three rubber bands, fingers, and happens is you're playing with emotion, okay? So you have three things here, and you start animating it, okay? And it immediately becomes one of the most simple sort of glove puppets, even without stitching or things like that. So when you're working in certain areas where you don't have material, okay, this is just giving you a feeling of human being, whatever. If I did this, it would be something else. And then slowly this becomes this. It starts developing into something else, and it's what you would then go into a formal thing, okay? And then slowly develop, make things out of it, and eventually what we call a cat or simple glove puppet without any, and that then becomes exercise puppet of how to emote without any, because eventually you will put face, you will put features, and half the story is set, but you know, walking with this and isolating yourself from the figure, as well as giving it, I would say, some sort of life. If it's done, if you just shake it, it's not animation, but less is more, and what we call willing suspension of disbelief. For that for a few minutes you get into the life of this, but you can break that as well if it's not working properly. So let's go into some of the different things that we've done with puppetry. And as we start here, it starts right there. So 1971, I would say, if you go back. Can I get out of this? Full screen? I think you need to get the full screen. No. Okay, yeah. So going back to where some of us have come here from, only 60 students when I joined. Today I think the campus is how many students, I don't know. We had more staff than students at that point of time. Going back to when the teachers, Mayor Contractor, if you've heard of Nowrose Contractor, the filmmaker camera's mother, she was to run the puppet section at Darpana. Meshke after 76, after ISRO, I was in Stockholm for 2 years at his institute, and this is what happened at ISRO. It was one of the first puppet series or simple puppets made for television. Today a lot of the television things are puppets for stage taken onto TV. And only one person there with a beard is alive, passed away, Alzheimer's, V.K. Raina, and this was a series that Who and Habe, as I said, you could say certain things through puppet theatre which you couldn't say through the live actors, human actors, because sensitive things on religion or whatever. But if you made a mistake through puppet theatre, that whole thing would go wrong. So the Mukhi, Kailash Pandya, the donkey was the protagonist or the alter ego, Mubay and Habe, and they'd always meet on a Tuesday, and he'd come with an actual problem from the area, from that yard, a real, some problem, and we would find a story within those next 5-6 days from anywhere in the world and adapt it, and then these two would have a dialogue and there would be a puppet story. They would end without saying, he would say what you wanted to, this one would disagree because he was a Mukhi and he couldn't change. Things became so sensitive at times that the real Mukhis in the village would pull out the plugs because it was becoming. But in the end of the first language of film or television or whatever was not still known in the village. Flashback, this, cut, you couldn't use it easily. So in the first 2-3 instances it was, oh, this is not a real donkey, this is Nakli donkey, but after that the studio used to get full of presents for this donkey. anaj, grain would come, kids would send their, birthday invitations, all sorts of things would come there, and it became a very popular serial, and it became a mouthpiece for things which could be done. These were pictures in Stockholm. A lot of the work at present, and especially in movement, came from this. He's also now a living master in Japan. At that point, it was 76, came from Japan. First time the Bunraku Puppet Theatre people travelled out into Europe, and he came to do a workshop at the Swedish Marionette Theatre Institute to teach us movement, because Meshke was doing Antigone in a certain style. And this is what happened. Meshke's museum in his school, and 1981 comes to Delhi. Panna Bharadram also is no more at Sri Ram Center, and we start India's first modern puppet repertory group. And there was 6-7 of us here. This is much later, but Vinod Dua was one of our first puppeteers and script writers. And
which one is you?
Sorry?
Picture?
What?
Which one is you in this?
Which one is me? You're sitting there. Delhi lost my head. But the thing was that every weekend we would have performances once we started. Saturday evening and Sunday morning in the basement theatre, which is now locked up because of fire, things like that. And we worked 13, 14, 15 productions with folklore, with new stories, epics, whatever, but with a twist. Using this technique of first time in India, maybe now every puppeteer here is using this 3-person technique. There used to be a children's magazine called Target. Rosalind Wilson used to be and there was a story called Tiger for Breakfast. That was our first production, Motuk Image, with puppeteers. There's Vinod sitting there, Pranjala Gill, I don't know what, anyway. And another piece which for the first time travel. Up to then, Festivals of India, mostly ICCR would send out very classical, traditional art forms, and a modern puppet theatre hadn't travelled. 84 at the UNIMA Congress, right now I'm president of that body, but each 4 years there's a congress and a festival, and even though this was a traditional story, Dhola Maru or Gatha from Rajasthan, but the interpretation was with large figures on heads, actors, a mixed total theatre with puppets, with objects, not using puppets as an ends in themselves, but as a means to tell stories, and what I have at hand. All sorts of things we did, circuses with umbrellas, with objects, but this piece keeps carrying on and on and on. In fact, Alka Pandey also just showed you a picture here. It was commissioned by Dr. Kapila Vatsa in 1993. Every year, IGNC used to commission a piece on Mahatma Gandhi to traditional puppeteer performances, so that they'd get a new repertoire and be able to work in their states. When she came to us with contemporary work, we said, will you give us a free hand? We'll use world music, we might put humor in as well, and she agreed. And this story is going around the world even now with, puppets. A lot of school educational work with puppets. This was at Wellham Girls for their 50th anniversary. Well, 5 minutes or not, everybody's taken more than 45 minutes. So, anyway, but different things working with there are different performances, a lot. Transposition is a piece which comes from Vital Panchvinasati, or what we know as Vikram Vital stories. And Schiller took it to Europe, to Thomas Mann, and it became the transposed heads. And we did a piece with, it was for teenagers and adults, so the archetypes were these body puppets and the inner voice were the puppet dancers, and we were playing between the real and unreal fantasy. This is another piece which is again, like I would say, festival piece. It keeps traveling. Another famous Shel Silverstein story, The Giving Tree, where boy and the tree, and we've done it in our version, Kalpataru, where we worked with shadow puppets, with the actor, but not not a stretched screen, a draped screen which you could walk through, and that also gave movement to the shadows. Again, workshops that we do. The present group, in fact, and most of the present modern puppeteers in Delhi originally came in through Ishara in 2001 on UNESCO and an EU project on HIV and substance abuse. And this was a project which came Mehboob Dada. He was working in India, UNESCO non-formal education, where the grant came for this project, but his idea was that to work with a marginalized group, and I had been working with SPT, Salam Balak Trust. The first group of 18-year-olds were coming out at that time. They want them to go out, try and turn, and 10 of them came into Ishara and trained through puppetry. Now, yes, they're married, they have their own flats, they have kids, they're traveling all over the world. Two of them joined Sesame Street India, become, get IT salaries. So puppetry chain. In fact, next month I'll be speaking in Madrid on this there's a conference on how art can change people's lives and how you can work, or what is it true or not. And this is when, so anyway, that's Shamim here, and yeah, a lot of scrap material, stick-dirty workshops, a lot of work with natural material, working and leaving it large figures, processional figures. This was a workshop in Singapore, but it's been done very often with us in giant puppets, which were in the last 2 days for this happiness big celebration that happened at Talkatora Garden by ARP, and yesterday at Imagine, as it's called. But these were giant processional puppets. Yeah. We got fed up of figurative work and came to a piece called Simple Dreams, just with music, sticks and umbrellas. This is an interesting exercise that you should try. So you throw sticks on the floor. With the 3 people, 3 sticks, you throw them on the floor and you watch it for a few seconds. And then you have to pick up these sticks and create that same pattern as they fall in the air. And it sounds, it's easier than said done, but you have to see how it falls, and then you pick them up and then you create that same thing. From that came a whole performance where we spoke about evolution, nature, but stick figures being animated and then going into umbrellas, but always with music. We came back after 10 years to scripts, and this was some years ago, I would say 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of carpenter, female infanticide, and a love story, Heer Ranjha, which is very well known here. So it was like Romeo and Juliet, but the, what's his name? Singh. When he adapted the script to the synopsis that I gave him, and we wanted to touch on certain things. So the live actors, the present day lovers, are the narrators, but are having the same problem today as in 18th century. And what was written in the 18th century is still happening today. And when they go to the Darvesh and Dargah and things, who's he, who's Ranjha, and then the puppets come alive, and they themselves hold the puppets and are the voice of the puppets. And then they come to present day, go back into the story. So she actually then takes the puppet, that one is a puppeteer. She was the actress who also becomes the puppeteer and the voice of the puppet when we go into the original story. And it talks a lot of, it's interesting because it criticizes religion, it criticizes Ranjha is supposed to be the hippie of that time. He plays the flute in the mosque when he's left. It's about land. His brothers have chucked him out. And the Maulvi, it says, Ab kya karo, haram hai, you cannot play music, and he replies back. And the same thing was then with the Jogi as well. Why have you come here? Because you've lost something. And we were worried at that time that that this is going to be sensitive. And the author said, look, I can show the actual book in the 18th century. This was written, I've just taken the lines and put it into simple Hindi. And in fact, she is eventually poisoned by her own parents because she's and he collapsed and died. Zoroastrian mythology on creation, where there was a huge exhibition, Everlasting Flame, about 4 years back in Delhi. There were 3 big exhibitions. One came to National Museum, one from Bombay, and one at IGNC, and there was some work which was done with large dealing again with scale, with actors, can't see, but we used the large puppets as the body for shadow screen, and we were working inside. Music was composed for this. Theatre du Châtelet in Paris, Vishal Bharadwaj was called to direct a performance, an opera, an Indian story, Ramanujan's Flowering Tree, which he was also taken from a Kannadiga folk tale. And John Adams had composed the music, very minimalistic music. Vishal, we were working with him at that time on the film Haidar, and he'd use puppets, so he said I'd like to use, so puppets came into this, and the Châtelet very clearly said that we've had enough of Kathakali, we've had enough of Rajasthan. Music is very minimal, we want something very simple and something very clean, and this is what happened eventually. The chorus in the thing was playing with the sets. Sudesh Adana, a very, very good dancer. He's a gymnast who became a dancer, now lives in Norway and is trained in dance, physical movement, keeps coming here and doing projects, and he was the one who choreographed this piece. This of course comes while we were shooting Haidar, the song Bismil to the film, where the theatre within the theatre piece was done with puppets in some minus 20 degrees. In fact, if you read the what I sent to you on WhatsApp, is not the nicest news of Kashmir today, right now. And so that the Martin. These again, this is the group that we work with. Sudesh did a piece where he came, this sort of cultural thing in Norway, called Dre. Dre, I think in Pashto is 3, and he is a very, very strong physical dance piece which shows 3 characters from the Mahabharata. One is all the souls that have gone, the good ones and the bad ones. Gandhari was Aditi Mangaldas, and the puppet represented Krishna, who could have stopped the war, but this whole thing of, he interpreted the just war, and why this, that, and the other, and this was with this is a group actually right now which is we're traveling with transposition, and most of them, I would say, no longer street kids. Some of them are not, but they don't like the stamp because originally it started from there, and as they said, that people want to see us as that, and then they get sympathy and they go with the thing, and we're no longer that, because it's true, it's totally a change, and they're working with different schools, working on their own. Shamim has his own puppet theatre, someone else has something else, and that is it in this section. I'll show you a short video. It's still a draft which Shahad has had to put together. This was a piece that came about, sometimes things drop out of heaven like that UNESCO project, or this one came from NCPA in Bombay, where Bombay Papery, I didn't know about it. It's a huge handmade paper store next to the stock exchange. Neeta Premchand used to develop and work with these paper makers in Daulatabad. And this very, very fine paper which these families used to make even for the Mughal miniatures. And they can't do that anymore with BT cotton because it knots or something and holds them. But she's got this huge stock of paper, and she illustrated 3 books with crushed paper, children's books, on the flood. One is, everybody knows about Noah story, but then there's a Gilgamesh story from Mesopotamia, and there's also a Manu story of this fish. And NCPA came saying that could we do this as a performance with especially the Symphony Orchestra of India for 20 members, live music. Music was composed by a Russian composer, came, lives in Canada. And what could we do? Now the challenge was putting 3 very similar stories into one performance. Up to everybody gets into the boat, it's a little different. After that there's a flood and there is redemption and everybody's saved. And the question was that in researching, every culture has a story of the flood, but in some parts of time flood. When we spoke with Neeta, and I said that, well, it's connected to environment and to climate change and all, she said, I don't want to make it obvious, let it be there. But I said, what do you tell? Eventually it was not a performance for kids, it was for families. And what do you say that God destroyed all these human beings because they didn't behave? And so one lot was moved, and there was some special group that were put into the boat, and they saved mankind. But we kept it open, and then of course, in the end, the whole thing was that the text came that as that we all come from different geographies, centuries, but at the core, all human beings have the same story. So I just feel there's a little trailer that was put together. It's still in the process, and the other challenge was, as you were talking about it, that could have used, because she wanted paper to come in and crush. And it was a little difficult because of not one performance, but hopefully more, and then crushed paper keeping it. So it became one of our performances with a lot of textile, with objects. But the animation that was being used in it came from her images, her books. So I get out of this. course, it's not music from each sequence, it's one part, but that's the way we work. We work with objects, with projection, but in this case with live music, and it's interesting technology because 1 month music used to go on WhatsApp between Canada and Delhi with little bites time difference, and then slowly it was developed, and we had, I think, 2 days, 3 days with the live. The live orchestra was already practicing, but when we reached, we had to coordinate both the orchestra as well as, because then eventually the director is the conductor, so it has to go with him, not me, and then this is all set, but it works, and now I think it's traveling to Moscow in October at this BRICS puppet festival where the different countries are participating. They've invited us with this show. So that's all. I've got one of the puppets from this because the goddess Ishtar, that was, she's literally Kali. She's seduction, love, sex, war, destruction in Mesopotamia. And there is one scene, and I've got a figure. Maybe if someone can play the music, I'll just animate the figure. It's just well, it's the next year will be the 19th Ishara International Puppet Festival, and the only place we can actually afford in Delhi at the moment is the amphitheatre because they give it to us on a special rate. So for 8 days, and no funding, no corporate funding, nothing. It's been running on tickets, sales, and selling shows to schools. The festival would also come to Gurgaon, to Epicenter, but Old World Hospitality is no longer there, so we don't have it. So we sort of manage in some way, and groups from all over the world want to come to the festival, even though it's strictly budgeted, and we're already for next year in February getting people who want to come. And Chandigarh administration is very good. For the last 5-6 years, they take 4 groups every time, sometimes to Calcutta, Kolkata, Jaipur, depends, but that's how we've been running. And the other thing is workshops, educational programs, things like that. Now we'll be going for 3 days to Dehradun, to a school, to do a very simple shadow puppet workshop, and that gets some of the income for the group. But it's interesting because these 7-8 people have now made their lives using puppet theatre, and they have been working freelance as well besides Ishara. They do their own work as well, production, props, things like that for different companies, things like that. His brother recently called us and we did the thing with the school, and this was working for about 10 days with scrap material. And the idea of those kids from Gurgaon, outside near Gurgaon, was their problems. Water was one of the main things, sanitation, and so they made four short stories, about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, but using scrap material. Puppets were all made from that, and it was the first time these kids interacted and came and worked with that. So it was interesting. So things like that keep happening. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. There's a question.
I wanted to say thank you for all the work you've done. My children were the beneficiaries of the Puppet Theatre Festival every year that we lived here. And I think it actually taught them how to be in the theatre. It was their first introduction to the theatre. And it set the stage for everything else we could do as a family in the theatre. So I thank you. My question is, has the audience, particularly the audience of children, changed over all these years in your perspective? When we have this click and swipe generation?
I think so.
Has
I can
anything
only
changed?
say for the change from the audiences that the Delhi audience, if I'm going to say, when we first started, anything that came from abroad was great. The groups, okay? There were 7 or 8 performances, out of which I would say 5 or 6 were foreign groups. Through the period, new groups in Delhi have started, and the audience has become discerning. They know what to expect. It's a ticketed show, so if you don't like it and you spend a certain amount, you'll grumble. But in the beginning, everything was nice when it came from the West or from Far East or whatever. Today, they've become very particular in choosing. The problem with our schools is that the schools say the fancy, the good schools, we don't have budgets. That's what they come with. Okay, because there is a cost, there is puppeteers, a group, and some schools take it, but it's always the adults who come with kids. Even in the show, there would be children, but there will be definitely an adult. So it's the adult who is buying the tickets, and the adult would love Cinderella and love Red Riding Hood. Those sort of things, and Mickey Mouse. They would love that. That's what they know. And the schools would also, I can get a Red Riding Hood performance from different countries, including from Iran, which was really strong, but they got shocked when they saw it, but they took it because it was Red Riding Hood, the school. So that is the problem which is slowly changing. It is a problem in Delhi schools. It's not a problem in Dehradun. It's not a problem in other smaller cities. But in the fancy schools, this is the problem. The HIV performances, when it had to go to schools, and the discussions that would happen afterwards were far more uninhibited in government schools. But in the public schools, it was all, they were very shy, or the teachers would be there, or the principal, and until then nobody would speak, and it was not easy to get through. And that's what I found that. And then it's difficult to get into a government school because you have all this red tape, permission to go through. But with some of the councillors who knew NGOs who were working with those schools, when we went there, the reaction and the discussions that would happen with those kids was far, far more, open and in many ways creative as well. But there is a slow change. It takes a long time. As she said, you have to keep at it. And sometimes we wonder, why are we doing this festival as well? Because we don't get sponsors. Why are we doing this thing? Sanjoy is one of our trustees, and he says, no, when we started in 2001, and at that point we could do with the rates, they would give us the main theatre in Habitat. Now we can't use that. And first 1 or 2, he said, कोई आया नहीं theatre देखने, because ICCR, SMA, it's always free shows. So who's going to buy tickets? So he said no. He started at 5 or 10, 20 rupee tickets. That's 2001. He said just keep the ticket. Whatever it is, put a ticket. Don't make it free. And now we can't advertise. We don't have money, but it goes full at the amphitheatre at a ticket of 400, 450. But unfortunately, only those who can spend that can come there. If you have to take it to somewhere else, then I have to get a sponsor, or I have to request the group that, look, let's do a free show or a minimal show for, an NGO or some place like that. And this time we got about some parents who came about and said, okay, we will sponsor, 5 or 6 came together and said, okay, we'll pay these fees, these costs, you take this show to this place and do it for these kids. A group which comes. The groups from abroad are very open, they want to do things, they come with the thing that, oh, some of them, we only can have 100 people in the audience. I said, if you come to India, 100, amphitheatre 250, but then they go to Chandigarh and it's like 1500, 2000, they get a shock. But then they return with the most positive sort of feeling. They say, we never had such an enthusiastic audience, you know.
Since I'm not facing the audience, only you. Since I'm not facing the rest of the people, this will be the last question. But I'm very intrigued. You started your career or your into puppetry through the ISRO project, right? ISRO project.
ISRO, yeah.
Project, yeah. And that was sort of Doordarshan at that time.
That was
Doordarshan.
There was not Doordarshan.
That was the first ISRO.
That was ISRO had its own space application center.
Yeah.
Will take further.
And now, if you were given the chance to again come up with a show, say for Netflix, then what would it be like?
For
Netflix.
Well, we have to make it. We have to do it ourselves, and Netflix and then translate it. Someone has to do. I mean, what are the costs? Costs putting it together. Like most of us are working at very minimal cost, and it depends on who or what we can do. It's possible to do. It's very possible to do, but it needs to be. ISRO was a great, interesting challenge as well as an eye-opener, because literally every week we had to make new puppets, besides the 2 characters, but they were very simple puppets, paper, cloth, things like that. Huge collection lying there. So we used only maybe once for that 15-20 minute episode. And it can be done, it is possible. But there was a script writer, there was a production designer, director, puppeteer and puppeteers who came in from outside. And the 3-4 people were constant, because you needed that finding a story, discussion, adapting the story as well to puppetry. Not everything gets easily adapted.
Because I feel that, you have achieved a mastery over your art, and thereby you're a great storyteller and an expressionist. And given the so-called modern medium, it's a huge opportunity for someone like you. And you should make it happen for yourself.
I think to come across
because
sometimes now you say I'm tired, I don't want to get up late in the morning, have my coffee, read the newspaper.
Yeah.
It's like you come to a point and okay, let you people do something, why should you carry on? But yes, if there's a team of people who's enthusiastic, then it's possible.
Now, what I'm suggesting is that you need to nudge it to make it happen.
We should try and do that. But we could do much more in our schools, even our government schools, educational work with NCRT, CIT, they all have these things, puppetry we should use. Is that they came up with a huge syllabus on creative drama and puppetry and NCRT, some years, TIE and SD, sitting for hours and hours making this. And in the end we realized it was cut paste, they put it together, and if you saw the whole year, it was some 1 hour of time which was given with little. So let's see if this so-called happiness thing carries on, because they have a subject, art has, in all the government schools, the first 45 minutes or 20 minutes, some of it is working very well, and some of the teachers but they talk, they meditate, they do yoga, they do all sorts of things. So now, when we had these giant puppets the other day, it was just in a procession, but they seem to be interested. Let's see if it filters down into something, because if something like that happens, because the talent is there, the creativity is there, it needs a little bit of a platform. When this thing happened with the festival as well, a one-off show is not easy, but when a festival happens and then there is a platform and you present it, people get interested. And as I said, this festival is now running with not on any ads. It comes in the column, the weekly column. If at all we get the press is very good with the festival, because it's maybe the only sort of thing that happens for kids and adults. And We cannot go higher than this ticket price because then you get into this tax bracket up to 500, so we can't do that. So this is how it happens. But it's happening. It's not next year will be the 19th festival. So,
Hats off to you.
thank you.